Yeah, it's certainly been a while, but finally we are back on the Renobug. Many of you oaks have started thinking that I'd forgotten about it, like Johnny Mac. But I promised you, my man, so here we are. The last time I worked on a Renobug project, I undercoated the 59 Renault body, and it's now basically ready for mounting to my shortened and modified Beetle floor pan. But then the whole story kind of came to a grinding halt because I figured it would be better to get the engine in place before I mount the body. So here we are. The mission now for me is to finish up that little engine. Hopefully we can start it, check it out, make sure it's good, and then I can stick the body back on. I'm just thinking something now. Yeah, my mind sometimes wanders a little bit. It might be your first time here in my forest workshop. Welcome, very welcome. You have ended up at the bottom end of South Africa. Yes, that place that is in the news quite often these days. And my name is Diff, as in differential or difficult, neither of which I am. Shout out to Charmaine and George van Staden in New Zealand. They gave me my new cap. Thanks, you guys. Hey, and they gave it to me in person as well. Can you believe it? They visited me at the George Car Show not so long ago, right here in South Africa. They actually flew out, not just to visit me, I'm not that important. They came and visited their daughter, and then I also cruised the car show. We ran into each other, had a great chat, very nice people. Thanks for my cap, you guys. How do you even say that? Aotearoa? I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. Cool design though. If I ever was to get a tattoo, I like this kind of design. Yes, and sorry about the stains. I've been sweating in this cap already. So all the Beetle engine tin is in primer. That right there was already quite a job. The old paint and everything was in such a terrible state that I just ended up getting them sandblasted. I also had to do some repairs here and there. I'll show you just now. Like this, for instance. A lot of the tabs were broken off or cracked, so I had to do some weld repairs and add new tabs. This is a newly made piece there, for instance. We had some cracks in this area there and there, so I welded that up again. Another mounting tab that I had to repair. You can see I welded on a little bit there, drilled new holes. This one is a little bashed up, but it doesn't really matter. It sits below where you can't see and it will still do its job just fine. So another one that had some broken tabs, right here, this one, and even that one on that side. So I cut some new bits and welded them on. The stuff is thin, so welding it is a pain, but it's done. So with sandblasting and repairing and priming out of the way, these things are now ready for some color. Yellow, to go with a yellow Renobug. And I'm going to be using 2K paint for the engine tin because I just feel it's more durable. Yeah, all this yellow, seems to be the flavor of the times. And not by design. I mean, it's turning out that way. Yellow Rio truck, yellow Renobug, yellow, yellow, mellow yellow. So the instructions say 2 of the color and 1 of the hardener. So who am I to argue? And yes, call me a miser if you want. I always ask my wife to save these yogurt containers so I can use them as mixing cups. But then the greenies call it upcycling or recycling, so it can't be a bad thing, Well, I'm not a paint expert, but it does need a little bit more thinning, I reckon. So I've got my 2K thinners in there. Let's see what this is gonna look like. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Like I say, I'm not the expert. Yeah, I feel that's good enough. I'm gonna give it a shot. Right, let's get some here into my El Cheapo spray gun. And if you are a pro spray painter, you're very welcome to do the same thing as my wife. Because without her, I would have no clue of all the things I do wrong. Yeah, so I tried it here on one of the bottom plates where you can't see anyway. But it seems to be spraying alright. So I'm just gonna carry on. Okie dokie, I've got lots of yellow bits that can be fitted, probably tomorrow when the paint is dried properly. Oh yeah, by the way, don't read that sign. I mean, there's been so much paint happening here lately. Paint, that the sign doesn't apply at the moment. Yeah, no, there's a good reason why I've been patching and repairing and welding engine tin here. I mean, if you live in a half-functioning country, you can probably buy a brand new engine tin at the click of a button, and I suppose without paying an arm and a leg. Not so here. I mean, you know what, freaking idiots and self-serving criminals that is running the government of this poor country has really systematically been destroying pretty much everything over the last 30 years. For example, our post office is bankrupt. So it's not functioning anymore. So if I want to import stuff, move stuff around, even here in South Africa, we've got to use expensive private couriers. Our South African rand has become pretty much worthless. You pay around 19 rands to a US dollar. I can remember a time where the South African rand was actually stronger than a US dollar. So we've got that issue as well. And then there's the import taxes on engine parts and pretty much everything, I suppose, which is also ridiculous. And talking of ridiculous, I'm sure you must have heard of all the politics that's in the limelight lately with regards to South Africa and the morons in government. You know, I'm thinking something now. I'm busy breaking one of my own rules here. I'm talking of this rule right here. It's even written on my wall. So forgive me for blowing off steam. Let's stick to the program. I gotta say one more thing. It would seem to me that this freaking ANC government is now really trying their very best to alienate South Africa from the USA and pretty much the rest of the Western world, I suppose. Now, I do hope that you are not going to alienate me because I'm South African. I can promise you there's a huge number of people here in South Africa that is violently opposed to everything that's been going on and that is going on at the moment. And they are essentially the taxpayers who's footing the bill at the end of the day. So I do foresee interesting times. Right, enough. I promise no more. Back to cars. I've been spending some time here on this Beetle sub-assembly as well. Have a look. Pretty smart, I think. It's even got a yellow dipstick. Yep, cleaned it up, checked it out, made sure there were no issues anyway. Everything's looking good. I couldn't find any major problems. No oil leaks. Pushrod tubes are still good. No oil leaks here by the oil cooler. So, and this engine still runs pretty well. We're not going to open the sub-assembly. It's just a stock standard little 1300 twin port, which is good enough for now. I don't want my wife to kill herself yet. Yeah, and maybe down the line, if you want to upgrade it, it's no big deal to just swap out the engines on these little Beetles. I'm going to stick up a old footage quickly where you can see how this engine was running. So tomorrow, when all the yellow paint on the engine tin is dry enough, we can start assembling this little engine, and that's going to be fun. After all the painting and cleaning and all that nonsense, sticking it all back together, that should be nice. Picked up a new Victor Reinz gasket set all the way from Deutschland, so we can put some fresh new gaskets everywhere. Yes, very nice. Now, I don't think we're going to be using these pushrod tube seals in this round. The ones I have in the engine there is still good. I think I've said that already. Got the surface cleaned up so I can pop my new inlet manifold gasket in place, except that's the wrong way around. The fee should go this way. There we go. Stick our little rag back in there to keep all the nasty stuff from falling in the holes. Let's get our first piece of engine tin in place here on the number 1 and 2 cylinders. Goes in like that. Ooh, that's looking rather sunny, I would say. Number 3 and 4. And nice shiny new screws. Thanks Mesco Engineering Supplies. More yellow bits. New exhaust gaskets. Yeah, and I even had to replace a few of the exhaust studs. They were quite rusted and the threads were damaged. Man, I remember well how we used to struggle with these things back in the day. Where a simple exhaust change job would turn into a whole day affair because the thread on the head had stripped, and then you have to take the whole freaking engine out to install a helicoil. Yeah, those days, eh? But yeah, luckily this time no issues like that. I could get the old studs out, no problem. All careful, working very carefully here and checking them all out. And I installed my new studs with some thread lock, the old thread lock thing, just to be sure. Yeah, let's face it, in the end, mild steel and aluminium are not the best of friends. Yep, and while many of you guys have been thinking nothing's happening to the Renobug, I've been spending much time behind the scenes sorting out all these bits and pieces. Cleaning, painting, reworking, rebuilding, all of that good stuff. So I took the trouble to prime all these aluminum bits with a special metals primer before painting them with a silver paint. I think we will just get better adhesion over time, I hope. Yes, this time I said aluminum, especially for my American friends. Here in South Africa we say aluminium. And I actually think pretty much the rest of the planet as well. I could be wrong, I don't know. Reworked the little distributor. I cleaned up and lubricated the timing advance mechanism. That's good now. Diaphragm here checks out. Got new condenser, new points, I reckon it's ready to rock and roll. You might recall from a previous video that I destroyed this oil filler in my attempts to remove it. I had to get it off because it's full of pinholes, so I can't use it anymore. And then, yeah, I just, even with this cut off, I couldn't budge this special bolt. And I even broke off a part of the head of it in my attempts to remove it. And then I ended up using a lot of heat. Heated it up. And that did the trick. So I could get it out and clean it up. Now I had to grind the head off and kind of flush. So I've only left with the thread parts of it. Now, yeah, I'm not exactly sure where I will find this little special fastener. So I'm going to make a plan using this piece. Not going to use that anymore, obviously. We'll come up with an idea, which I still have to do. But at least now we've got something that can screw in here. I mean, where in the world will I find something like this? Maybe online, but the online story doesn't work for me out here in the forest. They don't deliver stuff to me. Now, why are you doing this to me, Mr. Victor Reigns? There's only this one gasket in your kit for the alternator stand. And there also needs to be this splash deflector plate, I suppose you would call it, which is not in your kit. This is the old one. Luckily I kept it, so I cleaned it up. And then we always used to fit a paper gasket on either side of that plate. So I had to make this one. Not happy with Mr. Reigns at the moment. Well, I have a small confession to make. I did utter the few German swear words I know. Right there. I mean, that kit was not exactly cheap. And now I still have to make bits and pieces on top of it. Ah well, I guess that's how it goes. Well, I managed to get the fan housing on here without scratching any paint. And holy mackerel! Anybody remember that song by Donovan? Well, mellow yellow, it definitely ain't. Buttery? No. Banana-y? Maybe. Sunny? Definitely. We can call it very sunny. Ach no, Mr. Reigns, man. No, you did not give me gaskets for the fuel pump. I need one to go between the fuel pump and the Bakelite flange, and another one between the flange and the block. So now I had to make these two. And this time I've used Afrikaans swear words, and I'm telling you, there's no better language on the planet to swear in. Afrikaans swear words are just the best. I got a new flange-based Bomba Combustible. That's Brazilian for a fuel pump flange. Yes, and I do know a few Brazilian swear words as well. But I do know that I have a few Brazilian oaks watching. So I'm not going to mention them. Obrigado, you guys. Hey, and now we can add our one piece of bling that we have. Exciting stuff. Let's get it lined up nicely. Maybe like tap here with a wooden block and a hammer. Yeah, that feels good. Yeah, I think we're about there. I've got a fancy chrome nut too. Hang on. Not a nut, Duffy, a bolt. Get your terminology right before the inspectors jump on your case. Here you go, man. That looks pretty snazzy. Tell you something, I paid way too much for this bit of bling right here. I got it from Flat 4 Racing in Cape Town, and they got it from MP out in the States. Now, I'm not saying Flat 4 Racing is expensive. It's just with the exchange rate and the cost of shipping and import taxes, you want to play with shiny stuff out here, it's expensive. Got ourselves a 4-in-1 exhaust system. A little bit of a trade with my chummy Niels, who is a complete Beetle nut. Thanks, my friend. Hey, maybe we should go visit Niels one day and I can show you all the Beetle stuff that he's got. Well, I reckon I can now fit my 4-in-1 Kazos. A bit of squeezing here. There we go. That is fitting nicely. Get some nuts on here quickly. Yeah, it's going to tighten up all the nuts. I haven't got a silencer, so we'll have to build that. But I can only do it once the engine is fitted and the body's back on, so we can see how to run it. I'm just thinking now, silencer is, I guess, a South African term. And it might be called different names in different places. Let me know in the comments what you call this contraption, silencing thing, where you live. New distributor cap, new coil, got the inlet manifold in place, and I was actually quite amazed to find these inlet manifold rubbers at a local auto parts store here in my little corner of the world. I thought I would struggle to find them. I suppose that just shows how many Beetles are still on the road. Almost there now. I've got one more thing to fit, and that's the carburetor. I guess we can't stick this thing on that clean little engine. So I'm going to take this apart, clean it up, and then rework, rebuild, recondition, all the things. Right, let's see what we have in here. Let me get that float level out quickly, so we can have a look there in the bowl. Rather messy, I would say. 1 by 54-year-old Solex 34 carburetor turned into a pile of dirty parts that I can now clean and inspect. Yes, and always easy to take things apart. Another story to assemble it again. Let's hope I remember what goes where. Time for chemical potions, old toothbrushes, and elbow grease. Bubble, bubble, toil and trouble. Alchemy at work. Yes, almost. I soaked the whole thing in a solution of this stuff for about 15 minutes or so. Then I rinsed it off with fresh water, dried it, and then just buffed it up a little bit with a soft brass wire brush. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Okie dokie, so all my parts are clean. I've checked everything out. I don't see any issues. So I think I'm ready to assemble this little carburetor. I don't have a carb kit here, and town is a long way from the forest. But all these parts still look okay to me. Nothing wrong with the needle and seat and the jets and all of that. This little diaphragm is still serviceable. The only thing it's not so nice is this gasket here. So I just made a new one quickly, and then I made a new gasket to fit the carb to the manifold as well. This stuff right here, that's my go-to product for cleaning internal passages. Ultimo compression stabilizer, carburetor and combustion chamber cleaner. Yes, the barefoot mechanic introduced me to that stuff, and I'll tell you, it works very well. And you can even use this to spray into your carburetor when the engine is running to clean combustion chambers, etc. There's instructions on it then. So yes, we'll probably do that down the line as well. Right, let's build this puzzle then. That one goes in there. This one goes in here. This PC goes there. And this one goes in there. Some careful aiming to fit that jet in the bottom of the float bowl. But there she goes. accelerator pump affairs. If I remember correctly, the little spring goes in first, then the diaphragm sits like that. Now this little contraption goes on top of that. Keep everything lined up here. Yep, that feels good. Now this little gizmo, can I remember correctly, goes like that. Nope, that's wrong. That's not going to work. Other way. Yes, sir. Right, let's get these little screws in here. I mean, you know, it's always actually amazing if you think about it. These thick fingers we have, or many of us have, and how good they are actually maneuvering tiny little pieces into place. I mean, sometimes you can't see that bolt or nut, and then you just do it by feel. And I guess the more you do it, the better you get at it. Feeling bits of metal in difficult to reach places. I think we're almost there. One more little screw and then we can actually, I think what I'm going to do before I assemble the rest of the carburetor is let's just quickly test this accelerator pump to make sure that it does its job. That feels good. Let's throw some petrol in the bowl. Right, so now if I put foot, it should squirty squirty. There we go, look at that. Ha! So our little pump is doing what pump should do. So now I can stick my float into place. It's got this little retainer clip that goes in right there. Right. So before I can put the lid on, I must fit my needle and seat right here. Do you even call it a lid, this thing? I don't know. But it's a lid now. Tighten this up quickly. I reckon that's good. Right, where is my gasket? I've got my fresh new gasket. This way, Duffy. That sits like that. And then this little chappy can now go right there. Got to put in a couple of screws. And then we're close to done, yeah, I reckon. Well then, I do believe we have ourselves a little Solex 34 Pick 3 made in West Germany carburetor that will do the job again. Not without blemishes, but neither am I. Let's go stick it on that engine. Okay, let's see now. Here we go. The picture is nearly complete. I'll run some fuel line and some vacuum line. I hope I've got my fuel lines connected correctly. As far as I can remember, that one there is the supply. And this one goes to the carburetor. So it's the outlet. Well, we'll find out one of these days whether I was right or wrong. Only piece of pipe I could find here for a vacuum line was this green one, which I don't particularly like. So next time when I head out into the world, I'll see if I can find something better. But this will have to do for now. Hey, I nearly forgot about this. I still got to make a plan here for an oil filler. So for a start, I need a filler cap of sorts. Now I found this breather cap But this looks a little too small for me. Let's measure it. If I measure this, 19 millimeters, 3/4 of an inch. That's way too small. It'll take me forever to get the oil in there. No, I'm gonna have to go look for something else. Hey, what about this rusty old filler cap on this old Commer engine? Come on. Yes. Yeah, I think that could work. This looks like about 38, 40 mil, inch and a half. I think that can work. It's also got built-in breather facilities there. Okay, let's make this pretty then. So I came up with this contraption, piece of pipe, a flange here, obviously with a hole in it. And then I brazed on that special nut, bolt, whatever you call it. I did try to weld it first, but I don't know what material this is. It could be cast iron. Oh, no, it can't be. I don't know what it is. It did not want to weld. So the brazing did the trick. And then here on this side, I just welded on a bit of pipe to take the breather tube. So my little gizmo can now screw in right here. Yes, and I did put a little bit of sealant in here. Here's the evidence, the sticky evidence on my finger. And of course, I did size this piece of pipe to suit my new filler cap. So I did not have any of those little Beetle plug bead clips that goes right here. So I fashioned a forest engineering solution with a little bit of aluminium angle bar that is screwed to the fan housing. And then a piece of black perspex right here. So now my plug beads are firmly separated and held in place. SOS, SOS, this thing is a POS. It was the only air filter I could find at my local auto parts store. But I tell you, it fitted so badly onto the carburetor you could hardly clamp it, and even if it is clamped on, it would leak air everywhere. Toe strip ek my moer vir die blerrie ding en ek swys 'n stuk pypie onderaan vas. Oh, sorry, that was me muttering in Afrikaans. Loosely translated, that means I stripped my nut for the bloody thing. And I welded on a piece of pipe here. So now I've got it clamped on with a short length of radiator hose. At least now it's firmly in place. And it will have to do for now. I'm still not very happy with it. So I'll keep my eyes out for something better down the line. Well then, I do believe our little, mostly standard 1300 twin port special mid-chrome yellow edition engine is ready to be fitted, with the exception of that shiny crank pulley, my POS air filter and a 4-in-1 exhaust. The other parts are all reconditioned 54-year-old Beetle parts. Nothing else was bought new apart from service parts like those rubbers, distributor cap, coil and so forth. And there's a touch of forest engineering as well, like that contraption right there. So it is now ready to go in there, or is it on? And once it's in here or on here, we can start it up and see how it runs. Unfortunately, I can't start it on this engine stand. The pressure plate is tight against this plate right here. Now I built this stand to start V8s and run V8s. Suppose I could adapt it, but I'm not going to bother. It will just be easier to just stick it on that Beetle gearbox and then start it. There's dirt on my new engine. So all we need now is for the barefoot mechanic to come around so he can help me to fit this little engine. Yeah, ever since my surgeries, some of you might know about that, I can't really lift heavy things anymore. So let's not break important parts. So yes, we're going to have to wait for the barefoot mechanic, like I said. Thanks for hanging out with me. I enjoyed your company. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, as always, have a lucky one, my brothers and my awesome sisters.